Well, Razorback fans, it's finally here. The moment you've been all waiting for. The game of the season. The Liberty Bowl between Arkansas and Texas Tech. All right, let's just talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast, shall we?
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Friday. You made it to the weekend. Christmas holiday being in the middle of the week is kind of weird because I feel like I'm all out of sorts. I don't know what day it is, but what I do know is that the Arkansas Razorback football team plays their final game of 2024 tonight in Memphis, 6 o'clock in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl between the Razorbacks and the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Not exactly the game that everybody signed up for before the season started. Not exactly the game that everybody's been looking forward to the most. And even if people were saying, hey, you get to a bowl game and be successful, there's just something about the Liberty Bowl, which I believe is because you've played in it so many times, it just doesn't have the same allure. And Texas Tech, no offense to them, but it's just not exactly a riveting type of opponent. It's just not. And of course, I'm a hypocrite, and because I've said many times I refuse to go to Liberty Bowl, I refuse to go to Memphis, I refuse to do it, and guess what? I'm an idiot, I'm a moron, and I'm going. So, yay. But either way, the game is going to go on. And I'm going to talk about some of the players that I am interested in seeing in this particular game and in this matchup. But I pose the question to all of you, and I like to do this sometimes. What if Arkansas wins? And this is a lot more interesting, in my opinion at least, whenever it comes within the SEC play of what if Arkansas beats Georgia? What if Arkansas beats Alabama? What if they beat LSU? What if they beat Texas? Like the impact that would have. And in a lot of cases, the what if question is posed because it is such a unlikely scenario. And in some cases, I'd even pose the opposite when Arkansas is going into a game and that they're favored and everything. What if Arkansas loses? But even though that the bettors in Vegas have Arkansas favored ever so slightly in this game, I don't understand why. I still am viewing them personally as an underdog. I really don't know why Arkansas is the favorite. I don't. So taking that into consideration, I have to pose the question of what if Arkansas wins? What if Arkansas wins this bowl game? What if they beat Texas Tech? What if they finish the season 7-6? What if? Well, I'm going to be very honest with all of you. What if that happens? It really does not matter. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't add another great player from the transfer portal because you won the Liberty Bowl. It doesn't change anyone's trajectory. It doesn't change anyone's mind. It doesn't do anything as far as the big picture goes. The only thing that I really look at it, and as far as throwing a spin on a positive and something that could be really beneficial, is the fact that if Arkansas wins, it keeps them from having a losing season. And really keeps Sam Pittman from having back-to-back losing seasons. And that's not really in good company that he wants to be in. Maybe you all have heard me throw this stat around here before, but there is not a coach in Razorback football history that has ever survived back-to-back losing seasons, except for Houston Nutt. He was the exception to the rule. And even after he went 5-6 and 4-7, there was a lot of things put on him of saying, hey, you got to make some major changes. And he did because Gus Malzahn, Mitch Mustain, all of that. That was the only coach in Razorback football history that ever survived and kept his job after back-to-back losing seasons. Now, you may take that in a way of, okay, well, if you lose the bowl game, do you really count as a losing season? And the reality is, yes. Yes, it is a losing season. You lost more games than you won. And whether it's a big deal to you, it is something that is a big deal to me whenever, forget the record, like it matters. But in this particular instance, forget the record. If you can say your team had a winning season compared to a losing season, that's a very big distinction. It's a huge distinction because that gives Sam Pittman, after 5 years, and honestly, you could even throw in his first year here at Arkansas, the COVID year, which can't make excuses, but Arkansas won 3 SEC games that year. They probably would have gone at least 6-6 that season if it was a normal schedule, maybe even 7-5. But throwing that year out of it, it still at least shows that Sam Pittman has only had one losing season, and that was last year. So that does matter to me. And it should matter at least to Sam Pittman. And it should matter to the team. And it should matter to Hunter Yurachek. It should matter on that regard. Again, saying the difference between a losing season and a winning season is big, but how about back-to-back losing seasons? That will be said. That'll be brought up. And I don't think if you're Sam Pittman, you want to hear about that. And you want to know about that. Because it's put onto you as far as, hey, you're a loser back-to-back years. You had a losing season. So from that element, it's important. But for everything else, it's not really going to move the needle or change anyone's mind about Sam Pittman, about the coaches, about the transfer portal, about Taylen Green, about anything. And that's what makes these games so fascinating when it comes to bowl games that really don't matter. Like, how do you approach it as a fan where once upon a time, I should say, that there was bowl games going into play, it meant a lot to win your bowl game. And as time has gone on, the more bowl games that happened, the less interested time over time people became. And then it got to the point to where, because for a while, going to a bowl game was a big deal, but then it got to, well, shoot, if you go 6-6, you go to a bowl game, kind of lost its luster a little bit. So time over time, forget the transfer portal and NIL and all of that, there was some waning on how people approached bowl games and how people felt about bowl games. I mean, for crying out loud, there were even, before the NIL and stuff really started hitting, Arkansas, in the year they went 9-4 in the Outback Bowl, I mean, against Penn State, Arkansas won that game, but Penn State had a lot of people opting out of that game because it didn't matter to them. They were getting ready for other things, the NFL. Traylon Burks was one of those players, which I didn't blame him for. So it's just been an ongoing thing, and now it's become almost a glorified scrimmage, which you can look at it in two different ways, okay? If you're I'm going to rephrase that completely because I don't even want to put it out there and instilling it into people's heads. You should not look at this particular game, if you lose, and add that into some sort of anger or angst or extra added frustrations towards Sam Pittman, saying, see, we should have fired him because he lost the bowl game. Like that shouldn't be added into the reasons of things you want him gone for. But at the same time, if you're someone who's big on Sam Pittman and you like Sam Pittman, you want to keep Sam Pittman, you're supportive of Sam Pittman, you do not need to look at this bowl game to where if you win, be like, see, look how great he is. He's the man. You don't make large assumptions and leaps when it comes to this particular bowl game. I know you're going to no matter what. You're not going to listen to me. No one listens to me, and that's fine. But you have to be able to understand the context of what this bowl game is. It's a practice. It's a scrimmage. These practices that have been leading up to it have been huge for getting those reps for the players, for the guys that you are going to be counting on next season, for a guy like Taylen Green, for a few of the players that are true freshmen or didn't play much this past season, and you're going to count on them next year. That is what you have to look at for this bowl game. I want to win. I'll make that very clear. I want to win. If you give me a choice, well, John, do you want to win or lose? I'd prefer winning. I think everybody would prefer winning. But I'm also not going to let what happens tonight change my mind or change my narrative or anything about how I feel about Sam Pittman, about how I feel about the football program, about how I feel about the direction of it. All I'm asking for all of you to do with this particular game tonight is root for your team, root for the Hogs to win. Root for them, cheer for them. Take things into consideration and look at maybe some new players that really stand out. Maybe some fun things that happen. Maybe some big highlight plays that end up transpiring. Take all of those things and enjoy that part of it. But you can't be sitting there being like, what? The offensive line's getting smoked. They suck. This team's going to suck next year. This offensive line ain't even going to be the offensive line going out there next season. This is all the backups. These are all third stringers. So don't use that as some sort of ammo against next season saying this is why everything's terrible. Just take it for what it is. A scrimmage, practice, whatever. Take it for that. Root for your team to win. Even look at it as an exhibition game in basketball, you know? Doesn't count towards anything. But you still want to win. Still want to be competitive. And you still want to make it worth your while. So what if Arkansas wins? You had a winning season. That's it. And that's all it is. We'll talk about some of the players I want to see perform well in this particular game. We'll get to that and more. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, folks, did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? Well, that definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for all your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals that you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when you're using all of the app's premium features. For me, it was just one of the best features was that subscription tracker, because I said this before, but I had a car wash subscription that I wasn't even aware of. I thought that I had either canceled it or it just slipped my mind. And once I got this app, it said, hey, you're still paying for this. You're still paying $25 a month for this. I'm like, geez, man, you add that up. That's, if I did the math correctly in my head, that's like $300 a year. That's good money. That's gas money. And it helped me get rid of that, and it will help you with all of yours too. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. The players, we've got the depth chart from the game notes from the Arkansas Razorback sports information department. And it was so funny going through this. Just not funny in a bad way, but just funny how you're seeing a lot of players that you would have never dreamed in a million years, at least not dreamed any point in time this season, they'd be on the two deep, much less starting. But that's that particular case. So just kind of to run through and give you an idea, which is all subject to change, but give you an idea of what it's looking like for Arkansas. We'll start with the offense. And I'll talk about some of the players that I'm really excited to see. So going with the quarterback, Taylen Green's the guy. All right. Hopefully he stays healthy in this. KJ Jackson is the backup, the true freshman. I don't know if we'll see him. I kind of hope we don't. And because to me, it means that Arkansas either is getting smoked or Taylen Green got hurt. So I don't want to see either of those things happen. But if it does, I've really been a big fan of KJ Jackson. And what I saw from him in spring ball, dude's got the body type. He's just a true freshman. So I'd like to see what could possibly happen there. The running back situation, you got Rodney Hill and Tyrell Reed, but you also have Braylon Russell, who's going to be playing. So I don't know how much he'll play. I think Sam Pittman talked about him being there for like half the practices, but I'm sure he'll play because they need bodies. But Rodney Hill and Tyrell Reed really haven't played much at all this season. In fact, I think Rodney Hill had 2 touchdowns this season, and then you had Tyrell Reed have 1 touchdown this season. So not much production between the two of them. but it'll be nice to see maybe them get finally some run there too. The wide receiver position is what's really fascinating. You got Isaac TeSlaa, which kudos to Isaac TeSlaa for playing in the bowl game. This is his final season, and he could have just opted out. He could have like said, I'm out, I don't care, whatever. But he's playing in the bowl game. So I think he's, of all the players that, you talk about players opting out, players leaving or whatever, give a lot of love and praise to Isaac TeSlaa because he deserves it. So he's one of your wide receivers. But you also got Monte Harrison, the former 29-year-old baseball player that played for the Royals. It was the fall camp talk of the town and really hadn't done anything. I haven't heard from him at all. Well, he's now starting, 6'3", 230. It's so funny seeing him as a freshman, even though he's 29 years old. But people are going to be asking about him and really paying attention to him. He's number 82, by the way, for those of you interested. So I'll be curious to see what happens with him. And then also C.J. Brown, true freshman. He's your other starting wide receiver. He's from Bentonville, Arkansas. He only had one catch this year. And he had one drop against Texas, which is a big one. So I think that, getting to see these young guys get some run would be awesome. And even a guy like Shamar Easter, who's moved from tight end to wide receiver. He's 6'5", 228. He only had one catch this year. But I think he's going to get a lot of run, too. The tight end position, you got Andreas Poski, who's got 2 touchdown catches this season, which is so funny because he didn't play for over half the year. And then he caught 2 touchdown passes against Mississippi State. So he's going to be your starting tight end. And shout out to Maddox Lassiter, the greatest name ever, but also that Warren Lumberjack, that 6'3", 243. Dude just does it all. He plays H-back, he plays tight end, he plays fullback, he plays wide receiver. He'll do it all. So I'm going to be really watching him. I'm really going to be watching him and see the type of big-time athleticism he can show out with. But your offensive line is a little bit different, obviously, with Carmona still at the left tackle position. But then Keyshawn Blackstock is at the guard position, left guard. You have Brooks Edmondson or Joe Moore being at the starting center spot. That's going to be key, real key, because, the center, as we know, you got to snap the ball pretty well. Addison Nichols pretty much played the entire season. So we saw a little bit of these guys, but not too much. So I'll be curious to see how all that plays out for them. Then you got Kobe Branham there at the right guard position and Amarian Harris at the right tackle position. So some guys with some experience, but Kobe Branham is definitely the one that does not have experience at all. 4 games is what he played in this season. So on the offense, I'm really looking at the Monte Harrison deal, and I'm also looking at the Maddox Lassiter. Those are the 2 guys I'm really going to be fascinated by and curious in. Now, the defense is also a fascinating one because on the defensive line, you have Quincy Rhodes Jr. being starting there at the defensive end spot. Not surprising as he played quite a bit this year, but he played 9 games as a true freshman in 2023. So he's had some run, but you're going to have him at the defensive end spot. The 2 defensive tackles are going to be Kavion Henderson, who's a true freshman, Cam Ball. Looking at the wrong thing. Cam Ball, which we know Cam Ball is Cam Ball. He's great. But then the other spot, you're going to have Keevy Rose, who has played a bit this season. And it's one of those things where you almost forget he's a redshirt senior. So he's been here quite some time. He started 2 games this year, but he has a little bit of experience, but he's going to be new into that spot. And then Anton Juncaj, who Arkansas is trying to get back with the whole JUCO stuff that's going on. But not having Landon Jackson out there, you're going to have to see these 2 guys with Quincy Rhodes and Anton Juncaj, see what they're made of and see what they can do. So, the D-line, I think you're going to be fine when it comes to those starters, but after that, you're going to have some big question marks. And Texas Tech is the type of high-flying offense that goes all over the field, so it may get difficult at times. Then the linebacker spot, you're still in pretty good shape with because you still have Steven Dix Jr., who, good player, started a lot this year, played a lot. And then you have Xavier Sori, who both those guys are coming back next season. So that's big. That's huge. So you got your basically 2 starting linebackers back again next season and guys that played a lot this season being there. So I feel good about that. Now, the cornerback position is going to be another interesting one because you have Keon Stewart, who's starting at one cornerback spot, over Marquise Robinson, Cuddy, which Cuddy started a lot of games this season. But they really like Keon Stewart. And, he's a redshirt senior. Has been around since 2019. He's transferred from TCU. So this is his last hurrah. But he's the one that's getting the start. And then you have the no-fly zone himself, Hudson Clark, starting at the other cornerback spot, ahead of Jaheim Singletary, who did get some run. Like all these players are going to play, but these are the guys that are going to be the starters. And then Nico Slaughter at that nickelback spot. So nothing too crazy in that regard. Then at safety, you have Jaden Johnson, or Larry Worth, one of those 2 starting at that safety spot, which is about what you expect and about what you anticipated there. And then you got Miguel Mitchell at the other safety spot, which he's been really talked about a lot from Sam Pittman. And he's somebody that started against Texas just a few games ago, transferred from Florida, which I almost forgot that he was a transfer from Florida. I kept reading the game notes, but he played in every game this season, and they really like him and anticipate him being back next year and being a big part of it. So, I say that they're going to be fine there. So as much as crazy as the offense is, the defense is fine. But the player I'm going to be probably looking forward to seeing play the most out there defensively, he's going to be Anton Juncaj. And here's why. One, we've been told that he's been really dealing with injury all season long, so he should be healthy. And two, he was a guy that had a lot of expectation coming in. He has not lived up to it. So it would be really cool if he's coming back next season, if he's able to really show out and to really showcase what he can do when healthy in this particular game. So that's how I'm feeling about it. We'll get to some basketball. Some really cool news for basketball on the other side of the break. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, got to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's so thrilling. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points for each team will score, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more at FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. A little basketball news, which Arkansas basketball doesn't play until Monday in their final non-conference game against Oakland. The team that beat Kentucky last year in the NCAA tournament, so I'm sure people will be interested in that. But still, Arkansas is in good shape, 23rd in the country. And I believe to ESPN bracketologist Joey Lunardi, has Arkansas as a 9 seed right now. And it's not because Arkansas sucks, or is that just bad? It's just because the SEC is so stupid good. He's got 13 of 16 teams in the SEC going to the tournament, which looks really good. But this is more about a particular player for the 2025 class. We know Arkansas, of course, has 2 incredible players already heading to the Hill in 2025. I mean, you're talking about guys that, like, if you look at what they've accomplished already in the high school ranks, which I know transfer portals are really the big part of it, but in the high school ranks, you got Darius Acuff Jr., who's the #1 point guard in the entire country. And depending on who you look at, he's a top 5 player. So you got him. And then you got Malik Thomas, who is the #1 combo guard in the country. So you got the #1 point guard and the #1 combo guard coming into Arkansas. And you don't forget about Isaiah Sealy, who's a 4-star player out of Springdale, #1 player in the state who's also a combo guard. But here's where it gets fun, because you say, okay, you got a point guard and a combo guard. That's great. But, I mean, you need some size in there, right? Well, how about this? Mo Sylla. His name's Mohammed Sylla. But he's in his final stages of recruitment. He's the number 29th player in the country, but he is the #1 big man in the 2025 class. He's a 5-star player. He's 6'10", 240 pounds, okay? So all of you always talk about, we need to get down there and get your big man, get some muscle, get some physicality. Well, my man over here is 6'10", 240 as a true freshman, or as a high school senior. So that seems to be pretty good. And we know that with Cal and Kentucky and what he's done, he's had a lot of great players, but the bigs have really been something that they've looked at. But Arkansas is now in his top 3. He had 5 schools, but now there's only 3, according to reports. It's Georgia Tech, Oregon, and Arkansas. Those are the only 3 places he's looking at right now. Bella Vista Prep out of Arizona, not Arkansas. There's no Bella Vista Prep up there. But he's taking official visits to all the schools, and he's going to make his decision in the next week or 2. But yeah, apparently he's big on Arkansas, and he really likes what Arkansas was able to add into the mix. And apparently, according to the scouts, they say what makes him special, however, is his agility at 6'10", 240 with a massive frame. He's capable of going after any play defensively. He can move his feet guarding in space and has the quick twitch ability to be a problem as a help side defender. So imagine if Arkansas gets this guy, all right? which I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb and say that they do. He's a 4-star, 5-star, depending on where you look at it. But you're talking about possibly the number one class in the state. Of course, it'll be in the state, but in the country, possibly. Again, I know that's a lot to ask for, but right now, Arkansas is at 4th. And, I don't think they probably won't pass Duke. Duke has 4 5-stars going, so they probably won't be Duke. But I think that they could get up there past UConn, because it goes Duke, Houston, UConn, Arkansas. And so I think that they could probably at least jump UConn, maybe even Houston, if they got a player like him. So Cal's always said that they want just a few high school players, not a whole lot. So this would give them 4. He said 3, but this would give them 4. Let's cut it out at that and focus on those 4 players, but get some transfers, get some guys maybe to return on next year's team, which I know it's next year. You got to get through this season. But I like it. I like the talent. I like the fun. I like the intensity. And I like the possibility of having a true big man on campus for the Razorback basketball team. Appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have, and we'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel next Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we will see you then.